We're going back to the year 600 AD, or BC even, with this paganism that, the earth gets angry at us when we mistreat it, and then it punishes us. Again, it's not metaphor, it is literal. That's really what they believe. Here's a clip that's a little bit easier to understand, I think. Stacey Abrams was interviewed by Drew Barrymore, who has I suppose, a talk show or something like that, and she recounted this story that's probably entirely invented, but still funny and ironic in its own right. So the story about kind of her origin story, about being, dumped and dissed by a man, and how that fueled her moving forward. Listen to this.
So when I was in college, I fell in love with a boy who was mean to me.
Oh, God.
Yeah.
You know what? We've all done that.
Yeah, well, he broke up with me, and he said that I was too ambitious and wanted too many things, and I would end up alone and lonely. And so I got really mad. And then I was like, fine, I'm going to figure out all the things I'm going to do to make him rue the day that he was mean to me. And so I'm old, I'm 49. So
I'm going to be 48. We're right next to each other.
So you'll appreciate this. This was before Excel. This is when it was Lotus 123.
Right, okay.
And you had to go to the computer lab because owning a computer meant that you could buy the world. So
right.
I went to the computer lab at Spelman, and I did a spreadsheet, and I laid out all the things I was going to accomplish and all the ways I was going to just be fantastic and magnificent. And I don't know if he's ever going to see it, but I'm doing okay. I'm doing okay on my spreadsheet.
I don't know where to begin with this. First of all, look how into it Drew Barrymore is. She's wrapped up in this almost certainly made up story. That, by the way, if it's true, I'm doing Stacey Abrams a favor here. I'm cutting her some slack. I'm gonna give her the benefit of the doubt that she's just making that up to give herself an interesting story to tell. It's not all that interesting. Even making it up, she can't. She's like, I fell in love with a boy who was mean to me. Drew Barrymore, oh my God, mean to you? Oh no. But if the story is true, this is psychotic, pathetic behavior. So you set up a spreadsheet that you still apparently refer to because there was one kid like 2 decades ago who didn't want to go out with you. I mean, there were a lot more than one person who didn't want to go out with you, but like this one person, and so you have been driven. This is what they think that this is inspiring. So you make up a story in which she is driven by spite because there's one kid who didn't want to go out with him. Did he have to go out with you? Like, was he not allowed to say no? No means no, Stacey Abrams. But the greatest thing of all is that apparently this guy said that you're going to be lonely and alone, and he was right, because that's exactly what happened. Usually when you tell a story like this, I fell in love with this person and they said that I was going to be lonely and alone. That's when you follow up by saying, and I showed him, I'm happily married, I have 4 kids, but that's not the case for her. She's not married, she's childless. And she is most famous for losing elections. That's all she's done. Childless, alone, and her whole career has just been losing things. So that guy, if he exists, not only right, he dodged a bullet too. So well done to that young man. We'll be right back with more of the Matt Walsh Show after a quick word from our sponsors. Don't go anywhere.
Start up a motorcycle and you hear it go boom, boom, boom when it takes off. I was losing that. I was losing my energy, like everybody does as they grow older. But I don't want to be tired. I don't want to look tired, and I don't want to be tired. I started using Balance of Nature about 1.5 years ago. Noticed the results immediately, and I went, oh my gosh, this works. This is what I've been missing all my life. I'm loving life actually more than I ever have. I miss my blah blue. I got it back.
Experience the Balance of Nature difference for yourself. See why Kathy Gifford and thousands of others have had life-changing success with Balance of Nature. Take advantage of our New Year's offer while you still can. Call 1-800-246-8751 or go to balanceofnature.com. That's 1-800 1-800-246-8751 and get $25 off plus a free vibrant spice when you use discount code KLG.
Do your current investments have you on pins and needles? Let's talk about an opportunity to earn 6 to 10% on investment through real estate secured debt. I'm Mark Hahn, CEO at Pacific Private Money. For over a decade, our clients have been earning an above-market yield secured by California real estate. Here's what our investor Carolyn has to say about investing with Pacific Private Money.
I've been a highly satisfied investor with Pacific Private Money since 2014. I'm impressed with their competence, integrity, and transparency. Even through recent uncertain times, it was comforting to hold an investment that didn't keep me up at night while offering a reliable return. In 7 years, I've never regretted investing with Pacific Private Money.
You too can be earning consistent returns on your savings and retirement accounts. Give us a call to learn more. 415-926-4444 or visit us at pacificprivatemoney.com.
You know when you start up a motorcycle and you hear it go, boom, 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 when it takes off? I was losing that. I was losing my energy, like everybody does as they grow older. But I don't want to be tired. I don't want to look tired, and I don't want to be tired. I started using Balance of Nature about 1.5 years ago. Noticed the results immediately, and I went, oh my gosh, this works. This is what I've been missing all my life. I'm loving life actually more than I ever have. I miss my blah blah. I got it back.
Experience the balance of nature difference for yourself. See why Kathy Lee Gifford and thousands of others have had life-changing success with balance of nature. Take advantage of our New Year's offer while you still can. Call 1-800-246-8751 or go to balanceofnature.com. That's 1-800-246-8751 and get $25 off plus a free vibrant spice when you use discount code KLG. Social distancing slows the spread of coronavirus. So if you have a fever, dry cough, and shortness of breath, call your healthcare provider before going in. More info at coronavirus.gov. Let's all do our part because we're all #AloneTogether. Brought to you by the Ad Council.
We've all felt left out. And for people who move to this country, that feeling lasts more than a moment. We can change that. Learn how at belongwithus.org. Brought to you by the Ad Council.
It's me, Isabella Gomez, filling in for Smokey Bear because he's got more to say than just,
Only you can prevent wildfires.
like, if you're outside enjoying a barbecue, don't let a hamburger deter you from fire escape. Make sure you aren't dumping your hot coals or ashes onto the ground because that could start a wildfire. So take wildfire prevention seriously and let's save the world one day at a time. So for Smokey Bears, podemos hacerlo. Go to smokeybear.com to learn more about wildfire prevention. Brought to you by the U.S. Forces, your state forester, and the Ad Council.
I'm Smokey Bear, and I'm in assistant to help you prevent wildfires.
Dude, I got this. I've been camping since I was 5 years old.
But I am a camping influencer.
No, I'll bet you $5. Assistant Smokey, what is the best way to put out a campfire?
To put out a campfire, drown with water, stir, drown again. Then make sure the fire is out cold by feeling with the back of your hand.
Wait, really?
I'll take the $5.
Learn more at SmokeyBear.com.
Brought to you by the U.S. Forces, your state forester, and the Ad Council.
I'm just changing the song. I'm just...
No. When it comes to distracted driving, just don't. Sending a text takes your eyes off the road for just 5 seconds, but in that time, your car can travel the length of an entire football field. Any distracted driving just isn't worth it.
Visit StopTextStopWreck.org. A message brought to you by the National Highway Traffic Safety Administration, Project Yellow Light, and the Ad Council.
Thanks for listening to the Matt Walsh Show. Headline from Daily Wire, breaking all flights across the U.S. grounded as FAA systems fail. All flights across the United States were grounded Wednesday morning as the Federal Aviation Administration's Noticed Air Mission System failed. That's NOTAM, I suppose is the acronym. And NOTAM may state abnormal status of the national airspace system, including problems such as runway closures or general bird hazard warnings. That's what it's supposed to do. The FAA tweeted at 6:29 a.m. Eastern Time, the FAA is working to restore its Noticed Air Mission System. We are performing final validation checks and reloading the systems now. Operations across the national airspace system are affected. We'll provide frequent updates as we make progress. 28 minutes later, the FAA issued an update writing, cleared update number 2 for all stakeholders. The FAA is still working to fully restore the notice to air mission system following an outage. While some functions are beginning to come back online, national airspace systems operations remain limited. And this continued for several hours as every flight was grounded. It was a total mess at our airport. Every flight grounded. And in fact, I saw this firsthand, or I guess secondhand, because my mother-in-law, as it happens, is trying to fly in to visit right now as we speak, which maybe makes it. Nationwide failure has caused the capacity of the FAA's outdated technology to be put under a microscope, with some critics arguing that the system is obviously behind. Fox Business host Maria Bartiromo pointed out that the FAA systems have not been updated since 2015. Quote, it's government technology, so it's obviously behind the private sector, but this particular system is feeding data points from almost every single airport in the country, not just large airports, but small airports realistically all around the world, the airspace all around the world. So everything from a crane in the vicinity of an airport all the way up to, say, a volcanic eruption affecting airspace. The tremendous amounts of data points coming into these systems from all over the world, and the systems are layered and antiquated. They're not up to speed. This, again, is the aviation expert. Not up to speed, the speed like the private sector would be. So private sectors like, say, SpaceX, the FDA doesn't have analysts and engineers on the level and capacity of the private sector, the FAA. So, old, outdated systems causing major problems, a major catastrophe. So, in summation, this is another huge victory for our transportation department and its secretary, its historic secretary. Remember the historic when Pete Buttigieg was given this role as secretary of the transportation department. But maybe it turns out that it's not a good idea to hire a transportation secretary based solely on the fact that he's a gay Democrat. That's the only reason he got the job. Take back up. It's not just that. No, it's not fair. That's a straw man. That's not fair. I apologize. But he was hired. He was given this position because he's a gay Democrat, but also he likes trains. So that was another thing too. He did say that when he was asked why he got the job. He said he's always liked trains. You know, he was a Thomas the Tank Engine fan as a child, as many of us were, and so he's got that. He likes Thomas the Tank Engine. We still have Thomas the Tank Engine. Maybe that's not a good reason to give somebody a job like this. It's not just that. He got the job despite not having any qualifications at all to speak of that has anything to do with transportation. And his primary focus on the job has been social justice. That's what he's worried about. In fact, if you want to know why these systems are still antiquated and outdated, and they haven't been fixed, and they haven't been updated in years, and now they're failing and causing these cascading disastrous effects, that might be the case. All you got to do is to look at what Pete Buttigieg and the Department of Transportation have been focused on, what they've been worried about. So at the beginning of last year, Pete Buttigieg put out this big memo. You can go to transportation.gov and you can read it for yourself if you're interested. It's their Equity Action Plan for 2022. And this is what they're focused on. This is a summary of the Equity Action Plan. The U.S. Department of Transportation is committed to pursuing a comprehensive approach to advancing equity for all. In response to Executive Order 13985, advancing racial equity and support for underserved communities through the federal government, this Equity Action Plan highlights key actions that the U.S. Department of Transportation will undertake to expand access and opportunity to all communities while focusing on underserved, overburdened, and disadvantaged communities. The actions described here fall under 4 focus areas: wealth creation, power of community, prevention, and expanding access. Now you notice there's nothing in here about like keeping planes in the sky. So we're not focused on that. We're not focused on air traffic control. You know, how about an action plan to make sure that planes can fly and they're not going to run into each other? How about an action plan for that? John Cornillo has more on this equity action plan. He posted a screenshot to his Twitter page, and this is more of what they were focused on. The budget requests an additional $20 million above the 2020-21 enacted level for the Office of the Secretary to lead Department of Transportation's efforts to promote equity and inclusion. With these resources, the Department of Transportation would better ensure that historic investments under the bipartisan infrastructure law deliver resources and benefits equitably, including communities that have been historically underserved and adversely affected by persistent poverty or income inequality. Department of Transportation actions include workforce development, disadvantaged business enterprise procurement, data collection, reporting, public participation, and assistance measures in mitigating or negating the effects of structural obstacles to building wealth. And this also is essentially about the FAA. The budget provides $15 billion discretionary budget authority for the Federal Aviation Administration to improve aviation safety, transform the nation's aviation infrastructure, and improve cybersecurity. These investments also promote environmental justice and climate change mitigation by prioritizing sustainable design and construction, enhancing equity through more inclusive contracting and workforce development. So sometimes the best they can do is like, it starts okay. And so the second part of this starts okay. All right, so we're going to have something in the budget, discretionary budget, and it's going to give the FAA an improved ability to focus on safety and aviation infrastructure, improve cybersecurity. All that's good. That's what you should be doing. And then the very next sentence, it all falls apart. Because then they tell us, well, what do they mean by that? What they mean by that is we have to worry about environmental justice and, you know, enhancing equity through more inclusive contracting and workforce development. And so you had defenders of Pete Buttigieg, and you had leftists and Democrats who said, well, you can't blame him for this. This is not his fault. We heard the exact same thing during the supply chain crisis, which was going on while Pete Buttigieg was taking his 6 months of maternity leave, or however long it was. We heard the same thing. They said, well, don't be absurd. It's not his fault. This has nothing to do with this. What do you expect him to do about this? Well, if that's true, like if everything I've said so far is not valid because actually this isn't Pete Buttigieg's fault and the Department of Transportation has nothing to do with it, if that's the case, then that would only prove that we don't need the Department of Transportation and we don't need Pete Buttigieg at all or his job at all. That they're not doing any. If they don't have anything to do with a problem where, you know, the transportation department, and if they have nothing to do with a problem where every flight in the country is grounded, then you would think that's a major transportation issue. And if their hands are clean on that, that just tells you that they're not doing anything. They serve no purpose at all. So either this is their fault, or the department shouldn't exist, or both. I like to go with both. It is their fault, and it should be. Partially because it is. All right, speaking of other things that shouldn't exist in the government, here's the headline from Fox News. House Republicans to vote on a bill abolishing the IRS and eliminating the income tax. Republicans in the House of Representatives will vote on a bill that would abolish the Internal Revenue Service, eliminate the national income tax, and replace it with a national consumption tax. Fox News officials learned the House will be voting on Georgia Republican Representative Buddy Carter's reintroduced Fair Tax Act that aims to reel in the IRS, remove the national income tax, as well as other taxes, and replace them with a single consumption tax. The vote on the bill was made as part of the deal between House Speaker Kevin McCarthy and members of the House Freedom Caucus and was pushed forward in his quest for the gavel last week. Now, of course, needless to say, abolishing the IRS and the income tax had zero chance of actually passing. It's not going to pass through the Senate. It would never be signed into law by Joe Biden. But that doesn't mean that they shouldn't vote on it. And even if it won't pass, it still should. Like it's obvious. So we could talk about whether this could ever happen. But whether it should happen, like of course it should. Of course we should get rid of the IRS and the income tax. What kind of a masochist, what kind of just a submissive, self-loathing masochist would you have to be to think that we shouldn't get rid of the IRS and the income tax? This abomination known as the IRS. Something that, by the way, obviously, the people that founded this country never had in mind. They never had this in mind. they famously had quite a problem with the idea of being overtaxed, taxation without representation. So the idea of having this massive bureaucracy that can tax us simply for living and for earning an income. And not only that, but they have direct access to our finances and our bank accounts. And not only that, but they get to take our paychecks before we get our hands on them as part of the withholding system and take the part that they want and give us the rest, like giving us an allowance of our own income. It goes to them first and then us. This was never intended. It is not compatible with like any notion of economic liberty, freedom. It's just not compatible. So clearly needs to go away. Now, I actually, if I could snap my fingers and make this law a reality, and we would have the fair tax rather than the income tax, then I'd do that in a second. I would snap my fingers to that in a second. But I actually don't think, I'm in favor of abolishing the IRS and not replacing it with fair tax. I think we should just not replace it with anything. And the 40% or so of the revenue that the IRS generates, or not generates, takes by force, that 40% of revenue they should just do without. They would still have trillions to work with, and I think that should be enough. So they would have whatever it would be, 2 trillion rather than 4 trillion, and that should be enough. You should be able to run a government on a couple $trillion a year. That's my radical theory. Whereas the fair tax, the idea with fair tax is we're going to get rid of the income tax, but make up for all of that quote-unquote lost revenue with a consumption tax, which would be a national sales tax. And in order to make up for the quote-unquote lost revenue, and I have to keep putting air quotes around lost revenue, it's not really lost. It was never the government's revenue to begin with. It never belonged to them. It's our money. But in order to make up for what is lost, it would have to be a significant national sales tax. And I'm not sure exactly what with the latest proposal, what they are proposing the national sales tax should be, but it's something like over 20%. So an enormous sales tax. Again, still better than what we currently have, but almost anything's better. Obviously, this should happen. It won't happen, but obviously it should, and we should all support it happening. Again, there's no point. If you pretend to believe in anything like economic freedom, you've ever talked about that, or pretended to believe in that, well, that is impossible as long as the IRS is still. Next up in our daily cancellation, we'll be canceling those who are waging war against gas stoves. Don't go anywhere. We'll be right back.
When you start up a motorcycle and you hear it go boom, 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 stop. I was losing that. I was losing my energy, like everybody does as they grow older. And I don't want to be tired. I don't want to look tired, and I don't want to be tired. I started using Balance of Nature about 1.5 years ago. Noticed the results immediately, and I went, oh my gosh, this works. This is what I've been missing all my life. I'm loving life actually more than I ever have. I miss my Baba Lou. I got it back.
Experience the Balance of Nature difference for yourself. See why Kathy Lee Gifford and thousands of others have had life-changing success with Balance of Nature. Take advantage of our New Year's offer while you still can. Call 1-800-246-8751 or go to balanceofnature.com. That's 1-800-246-8751 and get $25 off plus a free fiber and spice when you use discount code KLG.
Individual rates, coverage offerings, and savings may vary, subject to terms and conditions, not available in all areas. Hey, small business owner, when's the last time you checked your workers' comp rate? For many small businesses, workers' comp insurance is one of their biggest costs. But some don't check their rate often. Did you know rates can vary? In fact, taking 3 minutes to check your rate with Pi Insurance could save you up to 30%. Just go to trypi.com, share a few details about your business, and get a quote that's customized for you with no hassle or hidden fees. We know you're busy, but spending just a few minutes to check your rate could save you money. Plus, when you sign up for pay-as-you-go billing, your premium is based on your actual payroll, not an estimate. So your workers' comp audit experience is simplified. See how much you could save with Pi Insurance. Ask your agent for Pi.